or be non-combustible.
And that applies for ag exempt, like people wanting to build a barn or something too?
Any new building.
And this is state law.
This is state law.
This snow load, what is the, in a normal building, I mean, you know, under your uniform building code right now, you have to build a roof structure that supports so much of a load. So is this snow load over and above what is normally required anyway, or is it just, you know, I mean, you're talking about hire somebody to do a study on your snow load. I mean, if you build, say, a roof, you know, a rafter roof on your house or whatever, shouldn't that come up with a certain pounds weight load that it carries right there? So is the snow load over and above that what that structure is supposed to support anyway?
That's correct. The snow load will be a
Over and
additional
above.
load.
But that's a separate. Who's in the snow load study business around here?
Engineers.
A lot of guys.
Jesus. Another thing, I see they changed the door width from 36 inches to 32. I read that someplace in it. I don't have my copy with me. I took it home with me and read it. And I just wonder, you ever try to, first of all, even on a 36-inch door, you ever try to get a appliance or refrigerator in that? It's tough as it is. And then if they go in, I guess that the reason they're making the doors narrow is because for energy savings or something like that. But you ever tried to get a sofa or a refrigerator through a narrow doorway? You know.
Well, that section, the minimum width was 36, but the opening was 32. Of course, for accessibility requirements, that would be different. But for some reason, they did away with the 36. I can't explain exactly why, but before you had to have a 36-inch wide door, and the opening had to be 32. So now the door has to provide for a 32-inch opening, and it removed the 36 inches.
One of the issues,
And that's and that will be the minimum. Of course, you can build larger
things
doors.
that's not on there. My brother pumps septic tanks for a living, and most people, when they have a septic tank problem, and septic tanks do need maintenance, especially new owners and whatnot, they don't have any way of knowing where the septic tank is. I wish that our building department, part of the building permit process, would make it to where owners, when they built the homes, where the septic tank is located, where the inspection portholes are, where they're designated by a post or a steel post or something. Because after you can't believe how many people that build little decks or put a garden over their septic tanks. And if they would put in a building permit process to where you have to designate by showing of a post or a steel anything to show where those openings are, and that way they'd never get, because a house is built 30, 40 years ago, some places they built bedrooms over the top of the septic tank, even with permits. Even with permits. So if our building department on new would start a process of saying, hey, designate where your septic system is, your septic tank is going to be, it's going to save a lot of expense and trouble in the future and make it a lot simpler. That is the main expense probably of getting somebody's septic system maintained, is finding the tank. They have to hire backhoe and sometimes dig up the whole backyard or the whole front yard just to find the tank. Where if you'd require some sort of a monument marker where it was at, it would solve the problem for 50 years on down the road. I've mentioned this, it's a pet peeve of mine but that's one regulation I think should be added, and we could throw out 10 pages of the others. But anyways, I'm going to bring that up every opportunity until you put that in your requirements.
I will do that.
Because it's a major expense to homeowners.
Supervisor Delbert.
Thank you. I think the reason why the door size got smaller is because after we build these fortresses, we're safer inside than we'll ever be anywhere else. So we don't have to get out. How were these adopted, Chris? Did the legislature adopt them? Did the state fire marshal on his own do it? What was the process for adopting these on behalf of the 58 counties of the state of California?
California Building Standards Commission adopts the codes, the international codes, and then they are sent to the state agencies to amend those codes. And there are several state agencies that review the codes and make the amendments, and it comes back, and then it's adopted.
How many houses in this county have collapsed due to snow load? Not many, huh?
I do not recall in my 21 years of service ever seeing a house collapse from snow loads.
You mentioned the west of 101, and there were certain 800-foot elevation. What's the kicker on the east side of 101? Was there an elevation kicker, or was it just anybody on the east side?
Anything on the east side is a site-specific.
Okay.
On the west side, I believe from 0 to 800 feet, there is 0 snow loads. From 800 to 1,300, it's 5 pounds, and from, I believe, 1,300 to 1,800, I believe, is 10 pounds. And then anything over 1,800 would be site-specific.
Besides concrete and steel, what's a non-combustible siding?
Stucco,
Okay.
a stucco siding, a hardy
Hardy plant.
panel, cement siding.
That's, yeah, cement. So, a county that at least used to a huge degree and is trying to continue to survive on a wood products industry, the state of California is basically sticking it to us. The was it T11, whatever that
Well,
an
and
inexpensive siding that on a house in the middle of an irrigated pasture that doesn't have a wildfire threat can no longer be used.
Let me
We
go
have to
back on that. If you are in an SRA, a state responsibility area, that you are required. In the LRA, this requirement does not have to be met. The LRAs have until July of this year to make changes to the CAL FIRE maps, and the local district can have their own requirements. So if you're, for instance, in the middle of Potter Valley, in the local fire district, that's not required.
But if you look at a map of Mendocino County, there aren't too many areas that aren't SRA.
The majority of Mendocino County is in the SRA.
So when we're trying to find ways of creating affordable housing, some group of folks in Sacramento, it wasn't even the legislature this time that stuck it to us, it was some other group that has decided now that the cost of housing in Mendocino County and in the other 57 counties is now going to increase substantially because of snow loads and soils testing and concrete siding and et cetera, et cetera. And my venting is not with you, obviously, because I think what you're trying to do is find a way to get us through this. But this, to me, is not acceptable. And I won't sit here and say, thank you, sir, may have another to the state. It's time we stand up and say, take it and stick it in your ear. This isn't going to work for us. This makes absolutely no sense. I mean, if we get 2 inches of snow where I live, and I'm on the east side of 101, my kids are thrilled. It's gone in 2 hours. And if they can make a little snowman in the meantime, it may last 3 or 4 hours. But that's it. There's no snow load risk out there or anyone else around here. This is absurd. And we need to stand up somehow and not sit back and just take this. We need to fight it, protest it, do something, call on our state legislators and say they need to do something. This is not acceptable. This makes no sense. Some of this stuff may make sense. Others of it make no sense whatsoever. We can't sit here and just take it. And I don't think you'll find folks in other 57 counties sitting back and just taking it. This is absurd. I mean, some of it makes sense, but others of it, again, it just doesn't make sense whatsoever. And we're trying to have an industry survive in this county, the wood products industry, and yet we can't use our own products.